Buenos dias. Guess what day it is? It's Consejo Viernes. I came on a quick walk because I am at work today, but I am out. Everything is blooming. Everything is so green. Of course, I'm not in my backyard, but we are in a park. So I've been sitting with self-abandonment for a couple of weeks now, and I've been wanting to make this post, but it's been a while. It's been a little bit busy. Life has been lifey, but I've been having a lot of conversations with people in regards to self-abandonment and just really sitting with that theme and thinking about how it's shown up in my life. And interesting enough, when we are in survival mode, we go through this phase. So when we're in survival mode, we sometimes stay stuck in the blaming phase of, blaming somebody else, blaming ourselves for acting the way that we did in a wrong way, self-sabotaging, causing conflict, being in abusive relationships, just being in that fight or flight survival mode, right? We will stay stuck in the it's somebody's fault or it's our fault kind of thing. And when you are out of survival mode, you do still go through the phase of acknowledging what self-abandonment even is or what it looks like, but you start to feel a little bit of the anger, right? And it feels a little bit different, where it's like it's not the blame piece, you're not putting the fault at somebody else, but it's just more of like acknowledging you take responsibility of what your actions and your behaviors were and what made you create or behave or choose those patterns, right? So I'm trying to be more organized with notes. So self-abandonment is the act of disconnecting from your own needs, feelings, boundaries of truth in order to feel safe, accepted, loved. And sometimes it's often unconsciously. So a good example that I can give was, for me, self-abandonment looked like it didn't just happen in relationships. It happened also with work. It happened with when I wasn't just speaking my truth, or even with friends when I didn't have any boundaries. Self-abandonment will look like when you ignore your needs to please others, people pleasing, suppress your own emotions to avoid conflict. So staying quiet, not speaking, not saying what you feel or what your thoughts were because of fear of hurting somebody else or making them feel uncomfortable. Prioritize external validation over inner truth. People pleasing again, right? It looks so different in so many different ways. Or talking to yourself with judgment and instead of compassion. How often are we always being very critical of ourselves and saying negative things to ourselves? So over time, that self-abandonment leads to this connection of our true selves and builds a lot of unprocessed emotions. So when we get to those unprocessed emotions, we just stuff and we stuff and we stuff. And what's going to be usually the result when we do that? When we suppress, we're going to explode. Usually when we explode with that, we experience anger and rage, and sometimes we don't have a healthy outlet to express that anger or rage. Sometimes it looks like being aggressive, being reactive, all of the things that the parts of you, the shadow parts that you probably didn't want to show or express, but because of it was so repressed, it shows up that way. So the biggest way on how we work with self-abandonment and anger is, first, we got to acknowledge and name the pattern. So we named the pattern of like, when are we ignoring our needs, right? So for example, for me, something that's been coming up for me was acknowledging how self-abandonment looked like in just career and work and school kind of things, where it's like, okay, I was trying to be somebody that I'm not. And I was angry towards the systems, towards school, towards, jobs, because I wasn't identifying what I wanted or what was best for me as a clinician, as a healer, any kind of professional, any kind of job at that employer, right? So when I was ignoring my needs of, I didn't feel like myself, I didn't feel heard, I didn't feel seen, I didn't feel respected, I would get angry and I would get resentful. Right? So that's a pattern. And so then it shows up in so many different parts of your life. So just pay attention to that. Then it's kind of allowing yourself to feel the anger. So that's the hardest one for a lot of people sometimes, because we don't want to feel anger. We sometimes are afraid to see those hard parts of ourselves that we get stuck in not wanting to be the monster, right? But sometimes it's important for us to remember that we have to learn how to become friends with anger and just recognize, what does it need? What does it want from us? It's the messenger, not the enemy. So acknowledging that anger, right? And finding an outlet that's a healthier way of expressing that anger. You can still express to somebody, hey, I'm feeling frustrated, I'm feeling angry, but not taking it out on somebody. It's controlling that reaction, right? So it goes back to, now it goes to number 3, right? Reclaiming your power. So we use that anger as fuel to reestablish boundaries, to speak up for ourselves, to honor our needs. And that's really uncomfortable because we're not used to doing that. We're not used to putting ourselves first, but it is so important that we do. And it's okay that you do express that and say, here are my boundaries, here's what I need. And the people that love you, what do I always say, are always going to be there for you, right? And so number 4 is when we practice an inner connection with ourselves. We sit with ourselves, we sit and we process and we reflect with our thoughts. We don't judge ourselves, we don't shame ourselves, we don't talk badly about ourselves, but we learn how to reframe just some of the things that we are dealing with. It can look like journaling, it can look like sitting outside with nature, having conversations with ourselves, but just being mindful of how we talk to each other. Or not to each other, but to ourselves, right? Because oftentimes it's that inner critic that's just being very critical and loud. And that's what I always say, that's not our voice. Whose voice is that? So that is my tidbit for Consejo Viernes about self-abandonment. Recognize and pay attention to where is it that you dismiss or devalue yourself, your needs. Where is it that you maybe need to practice setting more boundaries, whether it's just more of just saying no, or I don't want to go to this event, or no, I don't want this extra workload because I'm not getting paid for it. Little things like that, right? Or just, even if it's with your partners, of like, we're not feeling connected, how can I communicate my needs so that I'm not having these reactive anger bursts, whatever it may be. Because that's what creates a disconnection between not just ourselves, but then also creating connection with others. So there's that. Let me know what your thoughts are about self-abandonment. I am getting close to completing my first coaching package. And one of the things that we do talk about is self-abandonment and shame and anger. So stay tuned to what's coming up next. Part of my coaching package is I'm going to offer it to people outside of Washington. It's not just for people like I do in therapy that I'm licensed only in Washington. It's going to be open to the outside of the US. So if you want to work with me in the future, send me a message. Let's talk, let's chat, let's schedule something, and we'd love to just chat with you. So happy Friday. Have a great day. It's still rainy here, but it's so green. And I'll see you all later. Bye.